recording of the of the TODCAST Season 6, Episode 2 at Rebel, 15 February, with our guests Yvan, Kaman, Andre in the production, and Suzanne.
Cool. Welcome, Yvan.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try and pronounce your name now. Yvan Bayisabe.
Yvan Bayisabe.
Oh, Yvan Bayisabe. Damn it.
Almost together.
I do apologize if I butchered your name.
Oh, no worries.
So, okay, let me just introduce who you are a little bit. So I have a little bit of a bio here from him. So he's a serial entrepreneur based in Oslo with a master's degree in law at the University of Oslo. You're currently studying part-time in computer science in Oslo Met. You were born in Burundi and also migrated in Norway in 2003. And recently launched his startup called Vibrantcreator with the bold ambition to provide universal access to successful entrepreneurship. This startup provides entrepreneurs with a virtual business partner that formalizes and structures ideas into businesses. He's heavily passionate about impact development and speaks 5 languages. What are those 5 languages?
I mean, I moved from Burundi, and I lived short in Tanzania and Kenya as well. So there I kind of applied the Swahili language.
Right.
And then in Burundi it's French speaking. French is the second language. We have our own native language. So there I learned it from school, French from school, and and in Norway it's, English and Norwegian is
But you also speak fluent Norwegian though, don't you?
Yeah, I speak fluent. I can't say that I grew up here.
Yeah.
Because most of my experience is here. I came when I was really young, so yeah.
How old were you when you came?
I was 12.
You were 12, okay.
Around 12, yeah. Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah. So you have quite a, multicultural background and coming to Norway. How did that feel for you? Like when you were 12, you're moving here like in a very cold, I guess it's colder than Burundi is for sure. So
it was quite challenging. It was a lot of exposure, a lot of things to put in terms of it's a new country, different people. It's white people all over the place. Suddenly where are the black people? But I think I was pretty young, so it was easier for me to kind of adapt.
Yeah. It's funny when you said that because like when I took my daughter back to Hong Kong, she said that, oh, everyone looks like me. But then she asked this really funny question. She said that, where are the black people? I was like, oh, I'll have to take you down to another city. You probably see some there. But it's really interesting, right? Because you see like representation in sort of the people that you're in the society, and obviously with the work that you're doing now, you want to have more diversity in that, in a sense. So walk me through, why did you set Vibro up and what that meant for you?
There was a huge lack of, representation in terms of young people with minority background who are doing well in the society, right? So it started as a project, basically. Okay, let's create kind of like a documentary where we follow different young people who are doing successful things, not only in football, which is kind of like the typical thing.
Yeah.
Many people which are pushed in the media. So it started that way. We thought that we were going to make a documentary for, let's say, 3 to 4 months, and then we can push it out.
Yeah.
End up using 3 years.
Yes.
So it was a huge learning experience. And from there on, it formalized and became an organization. And from there on, it became more than an organization. We tried to kind of see how can we sustain this.
Yeah.
Because once you create something, you want it to be sustainable, not very dependent by me. So that's how kind of like the journey of Vibro grew. And we also managed to fail as well because...
talk us a bit about that. I want to hear about your challenges on that too.
Pushing your organization to be in the sustainable lane, you're kind of moving towards like social entrepreneurship. And in social entrepreneurship, it's more or less, okay, what can you sell? Like, or how can you monetize what you're doing, right? Because at the end of the day, you're creating value for the society, but it's not monetized, right? So, and when it's not monetized, then it's not sustainable. And the way things are structured here is like you have to kind of apply, different funds. You have many government funds and so on. But from our experience, it was that we found that what the expectations in terms of those different funds and what we tried to do was kind of mismatch. And we didn't want someone to dictate what we actually wanted to do, because we was on the field and we understood what's happening on the field. So that mismatch kind of led us to be more and more into the how can we solve this puzzle? How can we be sustainable? I think at the same time I was kind of in my late 20s. When I was trying to solve the problem, and I was kind of growing. I was not a young youth anymore in a sense. So it's a mix of those things, and you have so many young people who are passionate, but they grew up as well, and they had their own challenges in their own life. So that's how kind of we fell short.
But it's still up and running. Well, I still see the website ongoing, so it still feels like the presence is still there, even though there's not much you probably could do about it. But I think that the content you have there is still important. And I do remember when I saw some of the content, these youth were actually traveling as well. Yeah. So you're really not crossing over the border to doing like almost a challenge in that sense, but also bringing the world outside into Norway in some ways that I felt. You talked about growing up, and I find that really interesting because I feel like I have the same experience as you in that sense, because I came into doing the Oslo quite young. And, it was 5 years ago. I'm 35, but anyway. But the thing was, like, I still feel like I wasn't quite the leader. I didn't know how you felt about that, but for me it was like, there's still stuff I need to learn, like how do you like organize, people on your team, how do you organize certain things and structure things, and how do you strategically go through things. But also there's challenges of when you have people with different opinions. I don't know about you, but for me, I keep getting a lot of advices and I don't know which one to pick. So did you find that as well, or?
Yeah, I think I don't know where to start. I mean, I grew up in the role of being a leader, in sense, and the more and more we took the journey, the more and more we understood. Okay, these are the things. Maybe we should have done these things differently. I can give you, for example, in terms of entrepreneurship, we dived into entrepreneurship in sense, but there was so much information, too much information overload. So we made a lot of mistakes, which we could have been avoided, right? I mean, we did have the luxury of having people who have succeeded in entrepreneurship who could kind of advise us, or who was like, okay, I have a father who has done this and that, who can actually advise me on that area. So I mean, a part of the journey is to learn through mistakes as well.
And I think that's so interesting you brought that up, because that's where you got into Vibrantcreator and creating that, because you've seen like all the challenges of startups, and like you said, is an information overload, and I still have the information overload. And I've actually gone into your platform and I thought, wow, this is quite structured, it is quite, and also it's free, guys. So if you guys are a startup, go for it, take a look. And it is quite well done, because like I've been through so many different courses, and I looked through the information, and it's like, okay, just like you said, there's a mismatch as well. And I think like you've got so many business models out there. You've got the lean model, the social impact one, and you just don't know sometimes where to go about it. And so let me lead this down to Vibrantcreator that you have now. How did that started up?
So what we try to do basically is to see how can we bring this thing down? How can we structure it in a way that it actually makes sense practically, right? So let's say, for instance, like you have business model canvas, right? You start with, okay, who's your customer? What is the value proposition? And I struggled a lot to understand what is value proposition.
Right, exactly, me too.
and those are the things which, these are codes which probably if you have a mother, if you have someone has been a lot into entrepreneurship and has been successful, he can break those codes for you, right? Not many get the luxury of coming into these different incubators and so on, because as well it's limited space. So for me, it was okay. How can we break those codes for someone who simply has an idea and wants to basically take it to the next step?
I'd like to see what you think about this, because I feel like these funding applications out there, or these funding institutions that you can get funding from, Innovation Norway and so forth, I always feel like you have to fit into their narrative, also their system of way of thinking about innovation. And I think that's also where that mismatch is, because I think like with social entrepreneurship and what we're trying to do is quite unique in a sense, especially with Vibra and all that. And I find it really hard. I've been running this for 5 years, and basically I'm literally chipping a little bit of my salary from my part-time job to kind of keep this running. So I don't know what you feel about that, in terms of the institutions that are out there, that I feel like as minorities, we're kind of fitting into their mold, that they have this mold and we have to fit into it. Do you think that is the case, or?
We are going to experience a huge discussion on that area, because you have more and more voices. A lot of women are coming out. A lot of people with minority background are coming out. Black representation, Latino representation, and so on and so on. At the end of the day, it's about creating impact and sustain the impact. To create impact and sustain impact, you need to have profit in the sense that, so that things can go around, right? And that's something which needs to be understood, right? And another thing is also that if you're doing social entrepreneurship, why shouldn't you make profit? That's another way to view it in sense, because if you make profit, then you put more of your resources into it, right? So...
Oh, good point. No, you have a good point there. So I guess that kind of leads down to, with Vibrantcreator, for me, it's like, because you just started it and it's been like in the workings of 4 years, I think it was. So my thoughts around it was, what were the challenges that you had to face when you were building up Vibrantcreator? And who was the person you turned to when you struggle?
Well, I've had so many challenges building up Vibrantcreator. I mean, right now I'm taking a bachelor in applied science, computer science. Okay, one challenge is the technical side. So you're trying to create a technical solution, and you don't have technical background. I had to learn the hard way that you need to understand tech.
I get it.
And also the other challenge was also to understand, okay, what is it, doing a lot of research and actually make it so that this is something tangible, this is something which is actually serious. So doing a lot of deep dive and actually understanding the challenge, talking to a lot of entrepreneurs. I think we have talked to at least 1,000 entrepreneurs in this journey from different areas. We have traveled a lot in different African countries, trying to understand the situation there, even here in Europe. So it has been a big challenge in sense of understanding what exactly is the problem and how are we actually solving the problem. So it has been a lot of pivot, and I want to state this is something very important. I mean, pivot is something it's something very natural in a sense. We talk pivot in the sense that you failed. No, it's not that you failed. It's just that you are kind of pivoting something to fit the problem, right?
Right. Exactly.
And those are things which we find that through the journey that we have to pivot. We have to pivot. Okay, what we create now is too advanced. Okay, let's dumb it down. Let's make it easier. Let's make it even better. What is actually the problem we're trying to solve? So those are the things which has been challenging. Technical, and also trying to find the right solution to the problem. Yeah.
And so when you were meeting with those also challenges, I know you're taking a degree now in computer science.
Yeah.
When you are at your lowest, so that's what I wanted to find out. It's like when you're at your lowest, who do you turn to, if you meet certain challenges? Are you solving it all by yourself?
I usually kind of meditate, but my meditation is by running. I like to run. My daughter, going back home and see my daughter and see my girlfriend. And also turning to my father, who's my mentor. So those are kind of like the areas which I fall back to when I'm at my lowest.
Yeah. Because obviously for this season we're talking about, you know, thriving and surviving in Norway. And I think one of the things that I find that happens is that when we're suffering, you know, who can we turn to? Especially if you're an immigrant and you don't have family here, you know, who can you turn to for help? It sounds like you have a really good, like, father figure, role model for you. Do you feel like that? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my father. Right. So the reason why I'm at this way, I think it's because I find my purpose again. I think for the longest time I was kind of struggling to find my purpose, right? Because I don't want to end up in an office space just working 9 to 5. I mean, we human beings have so limited time on this earth, right? And we try to make as much. I strive to make as much impact as possible while I'm spending my time on this earth. So we have very limited time. So finding your purpose is something which is.
So what is that purpose then?
Is to create impact, right? I mean, for Vibrantcreator, in sense, we want to empower entrepreneurs. We want to empower anyone who has business idea, right? To kind of pursue that, right? Because at the end of the day, we need those ideas, right? And those ideas start somewhere. We need young people in minority background to come up with different solutions of how we can better this society, right? We need women to come out and do so. So we need to enable everyone to be on the table. Yeah.
It's very interesting when I talk to certain people, like they have a certain very, I wouldn't say positive attitude, but it's an attitude that, like, despite whatever obstacle, even though there's biasness out there, whether there's discrimination against me and all this kind of thing, I'm going to keep pushing through. That's how I feel like when I see you. Sometimes it's just like, I don't care. I don't want to spend time even thinking about that. I'm going to keep going through. And I think that's an attitude that I feel like we should definitely adopt and have. And I feel that in some ways. But also at times I feel like it's a heavy burden as well. It's like something like it builds up, right? It's an accumulation of events. So for me, like over the past 2 years, it was an accumulation of various different events that pushed me into a point where I'm like, I can't be that strong enough.
No, let me be clear on this. I mean, have a positive mind is very important, but it's also challenging in a sense, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're alone in your place, right? So you kind of feel the pain, right? So let me not say that I'm just, hey, everything is I would strive through. I mean, it's a challenging thing, right? But I think when you know your end goal, when you know your purpose, I think it's much easier for you to kind of strive. And my mantra has always been, I mean, don't just see the problem, try to see also solutions, right? So instead of just pinpointing the problem, okay, what can we do about the problem? So, yeah.
But do you think it's like anyone in a position can find a solution? Because sometimes I think about people who are in a very bad situation, maybe no jobs, and because of the pandemic, they can't go home, so they're stuck here in Norway.
Yeah.
You know, for them, like, finding a solution might be actually difficult, you know? And, you know, because, you know, I try to be extremely careful when I'm giving out any advices because I know, like, there are people who are in much, much worse situation. And, you know, for them, I feel like what can we say or what can we do that could get them feeling inspired that we can actually, you know, energize them in some ways to keep going, you know, even the day is hard.
Where there's challenges, there's a problem. And where's the problem? I think you can always find an innovative solution about it. I think entrepreneurship should be also a solution in science, trying to find solution to problems in a different way, right? So I think I'm not trying to put it in a way that it's very easy and so on and so on. But
Right.
I think the when you experience a pain, it's a call for, hey, there's something you can do about it. Then maybe there's a solution you can find around here, right?
It's like small steps, small steps.
It's a small step,
Yeah.
and that's not to feels like I'm plugging in Vibrantcreator all the time, but that's the whole idea, is that when you sense like, okay, there's a problem here, let me try to define the problem, and let me try to find a solution to it, and in that sense can monetize it, right? Because if you experience the problem, then the probability that someone else is experiencing the same problem is very huge, right? So, yeah.
And I think it's also good to mention the fact that you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
I find, I have two fantastic team members here, who helped me, live through the downs of the Autodesk, So I think like that, having a team member and helping you can help. And you had co-founders, right? I'm guessing that also helped you quite a bit.
And that's one of the elements which we have also, because what we're trying to do basically is create like a business partner, a digital business partner who you can interact with, in the sense that it gives you advice and so on. Because one of the elements which you have inside there is like, okay, what kind of skills and competence do you need to build this idea, right? Okay, and in that sense, when you have defined those, then you're encouraged to kind of, hey, recruit someone, find someone with that specific competence who can come in. And one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people do is like, okay, I can put in my friends inside. Okay,
Right.
Trying not to be strategically so that you are putting in the right people with the right competence who can basically help you to take your idea to the next step, right? But you're putting like-minded people, right? And when you have like-minded people, then
it's easier to kind of like execute and go forward in that sense.
But it depends. If they have the same skills, then it's like, okay, then you're doing the same thing, right? Maybe we need someone different. Maybe we need someone who can see things from a different angle, right? And that's also another type of representation. Having people with different perspective who can come in and take the idea to the next step. This is something which, just to bring back the discussion we had, the points which you had previously, representation is very, very important in the sense that when you have different people who are viewing things in a different perspective, when they're bringing things together, they push the imagination of where things can go, right? Like different companies in Norway, for example, they need to understand that, hey, we need to push for different people with different representation who can come in, bring different ideas, bring to the table. Because you're not competing with companies in Norway anymore. You're competing with companies, you're competing with Facebook, you're competing with Google, you're competing with so many other big giants out there. And they hire the best. Who's the CEO of Google? He's not American white guy, he's Indian guy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah? Who's CEO of Microsoft? So there's a switch which needs to be in place, because it's very like we are very like comfortable, it's very comfortable set, and we're not seeing the challenges which could, if you have been including more and more people with minority background inside your firm, you could have seen those challenges. You could have come up with different solutions. I'm sounding a bit preachy right now, but
but I think like you made a point that the solutions get better, right? If you get different minds coming together with different background, with diversity, with different representations on the table, and that reminded me, because you're part of you're a global shaper, part of the World Economics Forum, which is a network, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that atmosphere. When you're with a network of these big people from the World Economic Forum, because obviously you put in the best minds together, I would presume. So,
you have World Economic Forum, and under World Economic Forum you have young global leaders, and you have global shapers, and global shapers are kind of like including young people's voices into decision making area, which is the World Economic Forum, right? And they have different hubs in different areas around the world, and I'm a part of the Oslo hub.
What is the moment that you had, like, when you have these talks in a hub, where you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing, you know, we're coming up with a solution now, you know, and we're going to push through that with a solution. Is there any moments like that?
Yeah, there had been, but at the same time, it's more like, okay, should we try to push for something, or should we try to align ourselves with others in the society who are doing similar things, so that we can empower them to to take things even further. So I think in regarding youth empowerment, I think that's an area which I see that has been a driving factor for me within the hub, for example. Yeah.
So what is your key messages or key takeaway for those who are minorities moving to here, who are struggling? What is your message to them? And the second target audience I want you to also speak to is the Norwegians.
Yeah.
You know, what the message you want to speak to them about? Put you on the spot there.
You're putting me on the spot. I mean, don't lose your purpose. And I mean, things might be quite challenging. I've been through the similar experience. But I think it's very easy to say never give up, because when you face the actual reality check, I mean, it's very harsh. But I think message I always have is follow your purpose and keep up, even when things are tough.
Cool.
We have people who have been through tougher things, right? I can complain, but think about my parents and so on and so on, what they have been through, right? But they managed to get through.
When we come up with these stories and, you know, these difficulties and challenges as us as minorities are facing, often there's always a bit of a backlash, and sometimes people don't speak up about it either. So you never know how to go about it. So for me, it's just, how are you managing that? How are you navigating this, you know, potential almost wall that they build up almost sometimes? And how do you want to address them to what they think about in terms of, you know, diversity, inclusion, the work you do, and so forth too, to make sure that they may be able to hear this message from us, you know?
You know, when things doesn't affect you directly, you tend to feel like, you know, it's not my concern, right? Or it's not my problem. I mean, let's say, for example, the gender issue. But when you suddenly look around, hey, it's my mom. It's my daughter who's experiencing that. I mean, let's say, for instance, racism or discrimination. I mean, I don't like, let's say a white person, because I don't experience it, so it's not my concern, right? But the luxury that you have, that you're saying that it's not your concern, then that's actually the problem, right? Because you are not seeing the problem, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. So, no, I get it. You know.
So it's that's one example. But I think removing that bubble, that you are kind of like a separate entity or separate something which exists on its own. I think
because we're all connected. I feel like we're all connected at the end of the day. You know,
we are all connected. I mean, you have Norwegians who migrated to the United States, right?
Exactly.
So they have been a part of it, of their migration. So, the same thing with other people. They experience things. Yeah.
So, I guess get connecting. That's also what I'm thinking at this point. So, but that's actually all that I have, really. You know, is there anything you would like to add or say, you know, that we haven't covered during this conversation?
Well, no. The only thing I would say that, you know, for those who who are doing something, who are striving to, you know, have ideas or businesses and so on, I think don't stop. Just follow your purpose. Yeah.
That's a good note to end.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time today, Yvan, and hopefully we'll probably have you back again to see how you're doing.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.